Welcome back to Distant Gooner TV. Great to have you here. As always, please like, subscribe to the channel. You're probably thinking, where the fuck has he been? Sorry guys, life has kind of taken over for the last couple of weeks. Been a bit manic. But hey, we're here to talk about transfers, and finally, the activity's starting to sort of ramp up a bit. Yes, we're not splashing the cash like the rest of the league, you know. Nobody would realise we're in desperate need of a striker or a winger. But activity is starting to build, people, and we are going to discuss it. And we're going to start with the player who's staying at the club. Great news, Lewis-Skelly signing a new long-term deal with the club. This was announced a few weeks back with, if you saw the video, his family and friends. Now his contract, I believe, was negotiated by his mum. She's fucking amazing, I have to say. Every time she comes across on camera, so grounded, that it's no wonder that he comes across so well as well. Clearly brought up really, really well. So pleased that one of our own have got this deal. I mean, it's been an amazing year, hasn't it? A phenomenal breakout year for Lewis-Skelly. If rumours were to be believed, Real Madrid was circling. I'm not quite sure how true that was at this early stage in his career, but you know, nevertheless, this is a great bit of business from Arsenal. You know, he's taken over that left back position, absolutely nailed it. If you think, you know, we spent £40 million on Calafiori last summer, you know, you'd have thought he'd have been nailed on for that left back spot. But Lewis-Skelly has come in and he has taken his opportunity. Fantastic, fantastic breakout season. Even got in the England squad. And I've no doubt that he'll be going to the World Cup as well, barring obviously any injuries. So, yeah, so pleased we've got this deal done early in the summer. Obviously, we got Gabriel done not so long ago. So, brilliant bit of keeping our players. Let's hope the likes of Saka, William Saliba follow suit. And now to a player who's going. So Thomas Partey coming to the end of his contract. They haven't officially announced that he's gone, but of course we knew his contract would run out come the end of June. So, you know, he looks to be negotiating for moves elsewhere. And of course Arsenal were, well, I want to say fairly quick to react, but you know, this whole thing probably should have been sorted out a lot sooner than now. But of course, when it became apparent that no deal could be done, we've swooped in there for Christian Nørgaard from Brentford. He's not a bad player, but you know, I still, part of me thinks that, you know, have we upgraded? You know, so last season we had Thomas Partey and Jorginho in that number 6 role, and really have we upgraded? You know, if we bring in the likes of Zubimendi, and I still say that is still an if, it hasn't been announced as I'm recording this, that still has not been announced. But let's assume we do get him and Nørgaard comes in, then, I don't know. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm not really seeing it as a massive upgrade. And that's what I worry about with our business, you know. Historically, we kind of plug gaps, you know. Something happens, we react to it. We're not proactively addressing the fact that last season we were lacking on numbers. We finished second. We want to go that step further. So where is the improvement, you know, on the squad in terms of depth and quality? Because all we're really doing is just we're replacing the number with another number. You know, he's not an upgrade on quality. He's just there to fill a gap. And that's the bit of a frustrating thing about this. So I'm not saying that Nørgaard is a bad player, because he's an okay player. You know, he's only going to be a squad player. But, you know, there's still question marks around the Zubimendi. Yes, he's looked great for Spain, but how will he adapt to the Premier League? Will he hit the ground running? Unlikely. So we'll have to see how this pans out. And today, another player that's just been announced as leaving the club is Takehiro Tomiyasu. Sad to see him go, but on the other hand, and I'm not being disrespectful here, but this is a great bit of business by Arsenal. This is proactive. This is addressing the fact that the guy is never available. You know, he had a 1-year contract with, I think, an option of a further extension of a year. He's currently out until the new year anyway. So this makes complete sense. It's not as if we're not lacking numbers defensively. And of course, there's rumours that we're after Mosquera from Valencia. So now that would make even more sense if that does happen. Replace Tomiyasu with him. But from the Tomiyasu point of view, sad to see him go, but I think that's a smart bit of business by Arsenal. Get him off the books, because ultimately we're just paying for somebody to be on the bench. Not even on the bench half the time. He's just, he's been hammered with injuries since he's been at the club. So, good luck. But again, great bit of business by Berta and the team. And in terms of incomings, well, I've just mentioned, I'm not going to dwell on the Zubimendi thing. It apparently is just a matter of days away from being announced, so, we'll wait and see on that one. But in terms of the winger situation, well, we've seen the rumours about Madueke from Chelsea, another Chelsea player. I mean, let's just fucking hope that doesn't happen. As much as I do think he's a good player, I'm not knocking, his ability, but again, I'll go back to my previous comments. We need an upgrade. It's not just about filling numbers in this squad. We need to improve on what we've got if we want to go to the next level, if we want to win things. Then there's one person standing out in this, and that's Rodrigo. And to all accounts, it would appear now as the days go by, he's not going to be a Real Madrid player much longer. He's not really getting any minutes in the Club World Cup. Now, I don't see any kind of movement on any potential deal until Real Madrid's involvement in the Club World Cup is done. And even then, it could be quite a protracted debate. It's not going to be an easy deal to get done. But, they're talking in the region of 70 million euros for a player of that quality. To me, it'd just be a no-brainer to get that done. The Nico Williams one seems dead in the water now. He's just signed a 10-year contract. A 10-year contract with Bilbao. And I just, as much as it's kind of admirable when a player stays and is loyal to the club, I get that from, if it was one of our players. But looking at it from the opposite side of the fence, the guy just seems to have no ambition. I get if you don't want to come to Arsenal, he doesn't want to leave Spain. That's fine. But why he wouldn't want to go to Barcelona, God only knows. But this is not one I'm crying about. At the end of the day, I've seen him recently. Yes, he did look good in the championships, 2 years back. But I haven't been impressed in the games I've seen him this season. So, I don't really see him at the moment from the games I've seen as a massive improvement on what we've got there. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about that one, guys. Eberechi Eze from Crystal Palace has been an emerging target over the last week. Now, he claims to have a release clause of around £68 million. Now, it doesn't seem a horrendous bit of business. He can cover a multitude of positions up front. We know his quality on his day. Now an England international. But, I don't know. I have my reservations about this. But please get in touch. Let me know, would you have Eze at the club? My personal opinion is, if we were getting him on top of the likes of a Gyökeres and, say, a Rodrigo, because there is a rumour that we're looking at Eze as an addition to potentially a left-sided player and potentially a striker. Now, if that was the case, I have absolutely no problem. In fact, if we were to end the window and we got in Zubimendi, I'd still want another creative midfield player. But let's just say we got a Gyökeres, Eze, Rodrigo. I would be buzzing about that, to be fair. I can't knock it. My issue is that I wouldn't want to get in, say, an Eze to play on the left-hand side. I don't see him as fundamentally a massive upgrade on what we've got. Yes, he's quality on his day, but he's inconsistent. And I can just see that coming home to roost, next season. I can see myself sitting here complaining about his lack of end product, or consistency anyway, let's say, on his end product. So we'll have to wait and see, but please let me know what you think. Would you sign Eze this summer? And then the striker situation. Well, it just rumbles on and on and on. It's like just Groundhog Day, man. Every single day. We're starting to see this kind of pattern with Andrea Berta, who seems to be negotiating with, say, 4 players in every goddamn position. And fair play, that's obviously his way of doing business, and he's been successful in the past. We'll have to wait and see and judge him at the end of the window. But I don't know, people. On the face of it, I'm like, if you want a player, right, surely you've got a list of targets, and they come in a particular order. You've got your number 1 target, your number 2 target, etc. And they might well have that as the case, but it does feel like it's more of a scattergun approach, and let's just see what we can negotiate as a best deal. And like I said, we'll have to see how it pans out. I mean, I'd be interested to see what the players think of this, because if I'm sitting there as like a Gyökeres or a Sesko, I got to be honest that whilst, yeah, all right, the money's great, contracts will be great, if I'm not the number one target, and I get the vibe that, you know, I'm being played off against somebody else, I'd be inclined to just fucking walk away. And not only that, at some point there is going to be a team that comes in and just basically says, all right, we need this player, here's your 80, 90 million, we're having him. And he's gone. And then we're kind of looking at, all right, what's our next available option? So, you know, it's a bit strange, but we'll have to see, as I say, be patient, see what happens there. We know we've got Kepa through the door. We activated his 5 million release clause from Chelsea as backup to David Raya. And I do see him as backup. I mean, yes, I suppose he could compete to a point, but I wouldn't expect him to take over from David Raya. And, you know, it's a sensible bit of business, to be fair. I mean, I could sit here jesting that, you know, our first signing of the summer is a goalkeeper, a backup goalkeeper at that. You know, hardly getting goosebumps as Arteta has said he was getting, you know, chills about these activity and the signings that we were going to do. None of that. But, you know, it's that word again, isn't it, with Arsenal? Sensible bit of business. It is a sensible bit of business. We needed a backup keeper. I'd rather do this than just fucking every season get another loan player who's shit anyway, and like last season, fucking cup-tied for the games that he was likely to have played in. The most shocking bit of business you could ever imagine. So, you know, I'm pleased with this one. £5 million for a player that was, 70-odd plus that Chelsea paid for him? We know they pay over the odds anyway, but, you know, I think this is a no-brainer bit of business. Brilliant experience in the Premier League. Had a fantastic season last season with Bournemouth. So, you know, welcome to the club. Great bit of business. And yeah, we move on to our next targets. And what will be next? As I say, week on week, it seems to be ramping up the activity. Well, certainly the level of rumours. But are we going to get that striker in, people? That's what we're all asking. When will this deal be done? Please. Andrea Berta, if you are listening, you probably won't be, but if you are, please go out and sign Gyökeres. Go out and fucking buy a striker, for God's sake. I think we're all at the point now where, you know, yes, we've got our favourites, but I'm not going to complain. If one of them come through the door, Sesko, Gyökeres, just get it done. Then we can go on our tour. Get our players in so Arteta can work with these players. It's essential. You know, we've got a tough season coming up. We've got a tough start. And we need players through the door now. We need them ready to go that first day of the season. Thanks for listening, people. That's been your transfer roundup from all things from Arsenal. As I said at the start of this video, you know what you need to do. Remember to like the video. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Wherever you are in the world, I do not care. Your opinion is valued about our football club and I want to hear it. So please get in touch. Great to have you here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.